If any episode of iCarly makes you feel like you're on drugs, it's gotta be iApril Fools. The episode basically feels like you did some acid, and then you're watching Nickelodeon right as you start tripping balls. None of it makes any sense. It's like the episode takes place in some kind of alternate dimension. There's flashbacks to things that never happened, random characters thrown in who don't normally exist, and lines of dialogue that are fucking crazy, but then never explained. Like Carly saying that she stabbed someone.
I accidentally stabbed the owner of this building.
And then they never elaborate on it. The whole thing is just goddamn wild. And since it constantly breaks all kinds of rules and logic, it's generally considered to be a non-canon episode. And something worth pointing out is that Jerry Trainer, aka Spencer, actually directed this episode, making this his first time directing in the iCarly series. Which he would also go on to direct the later episode I Lost My Head in Vegas, so good for him. I'm proud of him. And genuinely, I think he channeled his inner crazy Steve while directing this one.
That's what I am as a director, an agent of chaos.
Maybe that explains why iApril Fools is so fucking nuts. But I gotta say, as much as I love Jerry Trainer, this episode really doesn't make goddamn sense. But aggro, it's not supposed to make sense. That's the point. Yeah, I know. I don't mean it like that. I mean, the premise of the episode doesn't make sense. I like psychedelics as much as the next guy. But what in the hell does that have to do with April Fools? Last I checked, April Fools was about pulling little pranks and jokes on people, tricking grandma into believing a fake headline,
bad economy, low ratings, they just canceled the whole internet,
giving a customer only one ice cube in his drink when he asked for a couple ice cubes.
What did you do to my drink?
You asked for a couple of ice cubes in your drink, and I only put in one!
You know, that sort of thing. So why give us this bizarre trip fest of an episode as an April Fool's special, instead of one where the plot involves them all pranking each other or something? Hell, Spencer canonically loves pulling pranks, and in fact, he gets addicted to it. Like he has a problem, he needs rehab. When he pulls one single prank, it's considered a relapse, and after that, he can't stop. Why not make the April Fool's episode centered around that? I don't know. But instead, we get this bizarre, insane, nonsensical episode for some reason. I guess the best explanation I can come up with is that they're pranking us, the audience, by airing such an insane episode? I don't know. So in honor of April Fool's Day, today we're taking a look back at iApril Fools to see what my boy Jerry Trainer had cooking up for us, and if it's really as fucking nuts as I remember. As always, if you like this one, be sure to give us a fat, throbbing like and maybe even subscribe. I might just film my next video while tripping balls, if you do. Follow me on Instagram and Twitter at AgroWasHere for a daily dose of nostalgia. And if you have any other episodes or shows you'd like me to cover, let me know in the comments. All right, let's dive in. So the episode starts off with all the main characters staring deeply into the camera, just staring right into my soul. It's kind of unsettling. And they basically warn us that this won't be an ordinary episode of iCarly and to buckle up, which, if we're going with this whole episode as a prank on the audience explanation, who starts off a prank by telling you they're gonna prank you? I expect more, especially from Spencer, the king of pranks. Then the theme song starts, and it's not the regular intro we're used to seeing. For starters, iApril Fools is typed into the address bar instead of the usual iCarly.com URL. Haha, charming. What a shitty name for an episode, by the way. iApril Fools. In these later seasons of iCarly, they really just stick the letter I in front of any word or phrase with no actual effort. In the earlier seasons, they at least tried to make them make sense, like I want more viewers or I promote TechFoots. Those actually made sense. But now, in this final season, they're just like, how about an April Fool's episode? All right, it's iCarly. April Fools. Weak sauce. And as the theme song plays, you'll notice some of the normal clips are replaced by bizarre stuff. Bubbles are floating around everywhere. Freddy's fire bending. Spencer is a lady. Sam's shooting lightning out of her fingertips. Anyone see Better Call Saul?
Lightning bolt shoot from my fingertips!
That's a classic. But back to the point. It's weird as hell. And then then at the end, they're all eating out of a giant caterpillar? What? Then after the theme song ends, we see Carly and Spencer packing up their stuff because they're being kicked out of the apartment complex, which honestly should have happened a long time ago with how many times Spencer has almost burned the place down. But whatever. Sam and Freddy show up with some boxes and ask why they have to leave.
We don't understand.
See, I forgot to pay our rent.
And then I accidentally stabbed the owner of this building.
And for that, they threw you out?
How did Carly accidentally stab Mr. Bushwell? What did she stab him with? A pen? A knife? Is she wanted by the cops?
This is the worst April Fool's Day ever! We gotta be out of here by 10 o'clock tonight!
Pacific Standard Time!
Gotta say that's incorrect. If it's April Fool's Day like Spencer said, then Seattle is using Pacific Daylight Time, not Pacific Standard Time. Motherfuckers couldn't even learn their time zones correctly. They decide to reminisce over the good times they've had in their apartment. And Carly says, remember when we sat on that couch watching the TV show where they kept having flashbacks? So they all have a flashback of themselves watching a TV show where the characters were having flashbacks. And fun fact, they're actually watching an episode of Head of the Class, a sitcom that ran from 1986 to 1991. And you can even hear Dan Schneider's voice in a voiceover cameo, reprising his role as Dennis Blunden.
Hey, Arvin, remember the time Mr. Moore stepped on that duck?
I sure do, Dennis.
Freddy says it's gonna be weird not having Spencer and Carly right across the hall anymore. And Sam says maybe you can hang out with the new people that move in. I like the implication that Carly and Spencer are only worth hanging out with based off the convenience of being across the hall. And rather than continuing to hang out at their new place, he'll just hang out with the new neighbors instead. Okay.
Maybe we can hang out with the new people who move in here.
Nope. They're from France.
What? Don't they know what that does to kids?
The iCarly writers have stayed consistent in hating on French people for years.
They're gonna fly us overseas. I just hope it's not France.
How come?
Why?
Because it's full of French people.
Oh, yeah.
True. Makes you wonder, what's the beef? Gibby comes through the elevator and creeps up on Spencer, then whacks the absolute living shit out of him with a stop sign.
Look, you guys, let's not...
First off, that's assault. Possible brain damage. Second, how did Gibby know that stop sign would even be there? He just knew it would be lying around in the apartment? Or is he an opportunist? Also, birth of a great meme right there. Classic. The others tell Gibby that's not how April Fool's works, and they're right. But this episode isn't how April Fool's works either. So, they're also not right. Carly says they should have a party before they're forced to move out, and they decide to invite Tebow. So they summon him out of a lamp, like a genie. And when he realizes it's April Fool's Day, the Tebow genie hits Spencer over the head with a stop sign as well. And I wonder if Jerry Trainer directing this episode had to be like, nah man, hit me harder, bruh. I wonder if brother just has a stop sign to the skull fetish and was using this episode to get off. Probably not though. They asked Tebow to warp them to the next scene, and suddenly we have an old radio that says Schneider's on it shoved in our faces. And one of the boxes next to Tebow's lamp actually says @DanWarp on it. Why can't bro go 5 seconds without name dropping himself? It wasn't enough to reference his old TV shows and give himself a vocal cameo. He's gotta shove his name onto our screens in multiple places as well. Freddy starts freaking out because they don't have a party bush, which sounds like something out of a 70s porno, right?
There's no party bush.
I am not partying without a party bush.
Tebow blinks one up, and that's not a bush, that's a flower pot. And for some reason, the audience cheers, as if Tebow actually made that thing appear out of thin air. What? Sam says, remember why we started iCarly in the first place? And they decide to all think back to it at the same time to trigger a flashback. So what we have here is basically a parody of a clip show episode, which is actually pretty funny. Cut to the school hallway where Carly and Sam try to get Miss Briggs to put the oddball kids in the school talent show, just like in the real pilot episode. But Carly and Sam are clearly their older selves, simply recreating this part of the pilot episode. And things get real weird when Spencer shows up in drag dog claiming to be the real Miss Briggs from an alternate dimension. Brother, look at his titties. They're huge. Kinda wanna suckle them. And just off the top of my head, this is at least the 4th time we've seen Spencer dressed as a woman. He wears Carly's dress in I Dream of Dance. He dresses up as Great Aunt Natalie in I Want My Website Back. And he dresses up as Sam's mother in the band episode I Lost My Mind. Which version of Lady Spencer do you think is the hottest? Let me know in the comments. The Spencer Miss Briggs and the original Miss Briggs touch each other, causing an overload of interdimensional energy, and they both explode. Then Carly says, hey, we should start a web show. Okay. They decide to call it iCarly, and then a dog named Sparky barks in agreement. Freddy then gets an itch on his face that causes him to break the space-time continuum just to scratch it. I don't like that. We jump back to the group on the couch, and it's revealed that they still have Sparky up on their wall. Alive, for that matter. They mounted him to the wall, despite him still being alive. Okay. Gibby sneaks up behind Spencer and hits him with the stop sign yet again. 3rd time getting brain damage for Spencer in this episode. What else can I say about that? Carly then brings up the chicks they had to save in their apartment back in the day, referencing the I Hatch Chicks episode from season 1. They all look off into the distance to trigger a flashback, but Spencer has to tell the harp player to play her instrument in order for it to work.
Play the harp.
And fun fact, the harp player is actually Hannah Tell, who is also the voice actor for Max Caulfield from Life is Strange. Crazy. At first, they just remember the chick being stuck behind the glass window in the elevator, like in the real episode. But then, Carly says, wait, I think our foreign friend Minko was there. And the scene plays again, but this time with a Chinese man in a sparkly unitard with them, shouting at them in a language they don't understand. Gibby sneaks up behind Minko in the flashback and hits him with a stop sign. Is that a hate crime? Hashtag stop Asian hate. Then, Carly Fortnite dances over his unconscious body and the flashback ends. Back on the couch, Spencer says, remember the time our cat ran away? And it cuts to a clip of a cute little kitty simply leaving and exiting the apartment because the door is wide open for some reason. And that's it. That's the whole scene. Tebow magically reappears just to say, I didn't know you guys had a cat, and then that's it. He disappears again. That's all they had to say. What a waste of time. Gibby starts yapping, but as he does, Minko sneaks in through the unlocked front door with a stop sign in his hands, of course, and he whacks Gibby over the head with it, officially getting his revenge for that hate crime. That's now the 5th stop sign assault we've seen in this episode. Minko then announces to us, the audience, that it's time for a commercial break, and Sam uses some kind of taser on his neck to knock him unconscious. Nice. I honestly thought at first she was injecting him with a needle right into his jugular vein. Probably the 2nd Asian hate crime of the episode. After the commercial break, or after the 1-second black screen if you're watching on streaming, they summon Tebow to water the party bush, which has somehow gotten bigger, and he makes a rain cloud appear above it. Carly says she's in a good mood even though they're being evicted, causing the group to reflect on a time when she was in a really bad mood, when Tebow made her stuffed mushrooms.
Hey, Carly! I made you some stuffed mushrooms.
Who cares?
So, in that flashback, he's just normal Tebow. He was in his groovy smoothie uniform and everything. But in their base reality, he's a genie? What? And instead of cutting back to the normal couch when this flashback ends, it cuts to them all sitting on the couches in Tori Vega's house, with Robbie there in place of Gibby. And it is weird as hell seeing them in that location. Get them off that couch. They do not belong there. After everyone stares into the camera uncomfortably, they transport back to the correct apartment, and Robbie turns back into Gibby. Then Carly, Sam, and Freddy say, hey, remember when Spencer had insanely long hair? And we get an insane recreation of his scene battling Sam in their assassin game from the I Saved Your Life episode. Except this time, Spencer has ridiculously long hair. That hair's gotta be dangling lower than his cock and balls. It's a really funny visual, and I'm a little disappointed we never got a full season or at least a full episode of Spencer in that wig. Come on. on now? Also, I respect that they brought back the same extra who played the mail delivery guy in the original scene from season 2. That's good commitment to the bit. And by the way, the shots of Sam hanging upside down from the ceiling and shooting Spencer with the paintball are actually the real clips of her doing it from the original episode. I guess they thought that would be too much effort to recreate. I don't know. When the long hair Spencer flashback ends, there's a knock at the apartment door, and it's the owner of the apartment building, Mr. Bushwell, along with the doorman Lewbert. And I didn't remember Mr. Bushwell being a character, by the way, and turns out he's only in this episode. They tell Carly and Spencer it's time to get the fuck out. Gibby is overcome with emotion, so he pulls his pants down and runs out of there with his pants around his ankles. So they make him take his shirt off less, but now they got him doing shit like this. Is this worse? I don't know. But Sam suddenly comes up with an idea.
Remember that time you came here to kick Carly and Spencer out of this apartment, but then you changed your mind and let them stay?
Carly, Sam, and Freddy tell them to think back and stare off into the distance to trigger a flashback. And it works. Cut to a fictional flashback of the same Mr. Bushwell knocking on the door, telling them they have to leave, then saying, wait, I changed my mind, you can stay. And what really pisses me off about this is the scene should cut right there and go back to the base reality we were just in. You know, the one where Carly, Sam, and Freddy just said, think back, think back. It should poof us back there. And then Mr. Bushwell should say, oh yeah, I guess I did change my mind about evicting you. And they should celebrate there in that timeline. But it never does. It never goes back. We actually stay in the flashback for the rest of the damn episode. I'm pissed. Spencer runs into the room and we get a reference to the ending of Back to the Future for some damn reason. Why? Why? He says they need to go back with him to a future episode of iCarly.
It's your kids.
What? Whose kids?
Yours and his, or his and hers, or hers and his. I don't remember, but something's got to be done about your kids.
And that's funny because we're actually in the final season here, and they're still trying to keep the debate going about whether Freddy ends up with Carly or Sam. And yet in I Start a Fan War, the iCarly writers had the audacity to preach to the audience to stop focusing so much on which girl Freddy should end up with.
iCarly is not really about our romantic relationships. iCarly's about comedy. I know the whole who should date who thing can be fun to think about.
But don't get too caught up in that stuff, you know?
Even though the show actively encourages that debate with episodes like this. So they agree to fly off to a future episode of iCarly, and Tebow flies over in a bubble to take them there. And as they all fly off in the bubble with Tebow, the words April Fools flash on the screen. And you know what? I finally get it. It does count as an April Fool's joke because they did prank us with that episode. They tricked me into wasting 23 goddamn minutes of my life. That's precious time of my life that I will never get back. The episode made no sense as a concept, and it had no point whatsoever. Why did they make this garbage instead of something like, I don't know, Spencer pulls too big of a prank and accidentally gets arrested and the kids have to get him out of jail? That would have been pretty funny. Or maybe the kids all try to pull off a big April Fool's prank on their iCarly viewers, but it goes too far and the audience turns against them. I don't know. Anything with an actual plot would have been nice. I guess part of me can respect the originality behind doing a fake clip show where none of the supposed clips are accurate to what actually happened, but it doesn't make sense as an April Fool's Day episode. Is taking psychedelics on April Fool's Day a tradition? Am I behind on the curve? I don't think I am. And with this episode being non-canon and having nothing to do with the holiday that it's supposed to be for, it was truly a waste of my life. But enough of me yapping. What do you guys think of iApril Fools? Did you like this one? Or does it make you want to bash somebody's head in with a stop sign? Let me know how you're feeling in the comments, and let's kick it. And as always, I gotta give imagine that stop sign hit to Spencer's head, but doing that to my cock and balls. That's what I would do for every single one of you. That's how grateful I am to the Aggro Army, the channel and Patreon members. If you're still here, that's awesome. Make sure you're subscribed and check out some other videos. And happy April Fool's Day. But if you're watching this in the future, unless it's April Fool's Day, fuck you. All right, thanks for listening.